and begin. So this is the 3 secrets of effective action, and it's part of my bigger series on how manifestation works. And what I'd like to talk about manifestation related to action is in the Western culture, and the way we've been traditionally raised, action is given a lot of weight. There's this agreement that if you don't do certain things, you won't be successful. Like action is always, I don't think there's anything actually that doesn't say do this, get that. Even like the secret is like think these kinds of thoughts and you'll get what you want. There's always an action required. But how people take action, there's a lot of misinformation, misunderstanding about it. And my training in action and its role and how to work with it comes from internal martial arts mainly. That's very strong on how to take effective action, because in martial arts, it's really based in, like, this evolved from fighting, people having to survive in survival fighting situations. That's how martial arts trained action. And it got very, very direct, like this is how it works. It takes away a lot of the misunderstanding or overthinking around it and takes it into its purest form. And so my training in action came from this idea of what is actually effective and how does it actually work. And it gets pretty esoteric pretty fast. Not because the people were doing that, but because when you get into the brass bolts of how do things work, it's a little like if you start looking inside a plant and just goes deeper and deeper into mystery. And that's what this is like. You get into the mystery of it. So the first principle of action that I think is really important that people tend not to be aware of is I think of it as spell weaving. It is weaving energy into the world. So rather than action being the thing that gets something to happen, it is how you infuse your environment with the energy that's inside of you. So it's not that the action causes the effect, but the energy that goes into the action. Which is why, like, if you do everything right and you are really rigid and you're really on top of yourself, you can still not get anywhere. Like, the world is filled with people who have done everything right and worked really, really hard and just hit wall after wall. And no one can fault them. Like, it's not that they're lazy. It's not, they've done nothing wrong, but the energy they're working from is what's creating their effect. And so if you're working out of fear, you're going to get fear-based results. It is true, people can become successful, very successful. They can get money, fame, whatever it is they're trying to do with action without ever learning to be happy, but then they become unhappy when they get the result. It's the successful movie star who kills themselves kind of phenomenon. It basically, you get the results that are the energy you generate with the action. It's not like what happens is based on what you're bringing to the table, not like, it's not like I walked across the street, now I'm across the street. It's like I brought this kind of joy and appreciation and excitement for life as I crossed the street, and then I saw these flowers, and then this, and then that. Or I brought this real of fear and anxiety and everything, and then I stepped in some dog stuff, and then, like there's like this kind of result experience of how we do things. And I liken it to when I was first, for those familiar with me, for those who've seen my website and stuff, I had the psychic awakening experience 11 years ago now, in January of 2009. And in it, I got in this really intense state where I started doing, I started putting a lot of energy into things. Like, I had this extra fire element where I was so excited. I was really tapped into the truth of this experience. And I spent 2 hours making cookies for this potluck. And I was generating and dancing and chanting. I was doing all this. And I set the intention to help people accept their bodies, to feel good about their bodies with these cookies. And I brought it to the potluck, and it was oatmeal raisin cookies. And everyone was like, these are the best cookies I've ever had. I can't stand raisins. I can't stop eating these cookies. And what is this recipe? And oh my gosh. And I was like, it's the recipe on the box. Sorry. Like, I was like, you weren't supposed to ask for the recipe. And I have another experience. I was meditating. I try and meditate before I see clients. This was a few years ago. And I was doing meditation and I realized, like, I had these chairs, I had little cushions on the chairs for clients to sit in. And I realized a cushion didn't look good and the client would be there in a minute. But I didn't want to stop my meditation. So I got up and I went and I fluffed the pillow while meditating. I made it part of it. The client comes in and she's like, this is the most comfortable pillow. Like, wow, this is, you know, it's the same pillow I'd had for years, but it was that experience. And those are like tiny examples of how the energy with which you do something creates an effect. And those are like more like I was really in a state, I was doing something, I created something. But anytime you do any action, you are doing that. Usually your mind is somewhere else. Usually your mind's on, oh, I don't want that to happen, or I really hope this happens, or this, or it's off somewhere. But you're taking an action and it's having an effect through the energy you're bringing to it. So that mindfulness of where am I internally and how am I showing up first is the most important piece before you take any kind of action, because the action is going to weave into the world around you the energy that's going on inside of you. So in my manifestation class that I teach techniques for making, without suppressing emotion, without getting in the way of whatever is going on inside of you, how you can separate that from the action you take, so that your action is always being done from a conscious state, so that you're certain that you are bringing the energy to the world that you want to bring. And then there's other things that I teach for addressing the difficult emotions or things that you maybe don't want to put into your action, but you still have to deal with. I taught a class, I think it was last week, I taught how to, the benefits of negative emotions and how to work with them. I have a recording of that if anyone's interested in it. But in my class, my 6-week class I have coming up in January now, I do teach more specifics of how to separate emotion from action, so you're able to take action in a conscious way. And that's a principle here that's important to be aware of. The next, so just to recap quickly, the first principle of effective action is to know it's spell weaving, to know that you are bringing energy into the world from your state, and that is what has the effect. More so than what you do, it's how you do it. And the more conscious you are when you take an action, the more effective it will be. And when people are like, wow, you know, I just did this thing and it was all like, it was so magical and all this good stuff happened, the state you bring is the effect. So if you do a meditation on something the night before and you set it up in your mind, you can go and things will kind of play out easier. I'll just say that, easier than if you hadn't. That's my big trick for everything. Whenever there's anything that's kind of big, like giving these talks or anything that's just sort of like not my normal everyday thing, I will intend a certain kind of energy to it, more so than I'll plan the details of what I'll say or do. I intend the energy, and I let myself show up to that energy and let that be what I bring when I take an action. Okay. Yeah, someone asked, is it spell weaving? Yes, that's what I'm calling it. I'm calling it spell weaving. I'm calling action spell weaving. Weaving energy into the world. Putting it in that context makes it a little more magical, a little less, oh, I have to do this and this and this. A little more, what's needed here? What's helpful? What's useful? Calm down, slow down. What's the right amount of effort? Get more gentle, get softer. Make sense? Okay. Are there any other questions about that before I go on to the next point? Okay, if not. Okay. All right. So the next thing is action is symbolic. So this is again on the energy side of it. When you take action, you're showing your willingness to show up for it. There's this idea like if there's an other, if there's an outside of you, if there's a universe out there, it's waiting and on you to show it and direct it what you're doing. So if you set intention, if you do a lot of energy around something, but you don't take action, it kind of says, I want this, but I'm not willing to show up for it. And now you don't have to do the actions that are specifically related to it. You can be cleaning your house, but intending your energy toward the thing you want to create. And you might not have an action that you know of to take specifically for that, but it's like, well, I can clean my house, I can take care of my yard, I can do these things and it can help. But it's the willingness to show up that makes the difference. And so I actually, just before coming here to give this talk, I had a little bit of time and I was like, I was like feeling like what's needed, what's useful. And it was like, I need to go through my financials and update bookkeeping and records and stuff that I had gotten a little behind on. And there was this feeling of it, not that that was what needed to be done, but I needed to show my willingness to show up. Like I needed to show I was willing to be present in my life and to be present in these things that I tended not to pay attention to. And I could feel that it's like, okay, time to be present here. And so action is your way of showing up and showing that you are present and accounted for and showing your willingness to follow through on what you say. Does that make sense? It's not, again, we're taking the pressure off of doing the thing, which slows everything down, by the way. Like, I have to do this, puts a ton of pressure on it, and it makes it like, oh, I have to do that thing, and then there's that, and there's but if it's like, I'm just saying hi, I'm arriving, I'm letting the universe know I'm here and I care. That's a way to put it. I'm here, I care. This thing I've been asking for, I'm willing to show up for it. I'm willing to take this action to show up for it. It's that thing of like, there's the joke of the guy who prays and prays and prays for years to win the lottery. And finally God says, would you do me a favor and buy a lottery ticket? Like action is like, okay, you've done all the energy and stuff to win the lottery. Go buy a ticket now. That's a way to put it. Yeah. And I had the experience recently. I've put a lot of energy into creating this 6-week class on manifestation that's coming in January. And I'd done all this and I was feeling really lopsided. I was starting to spin out about it and I was getting really uncomfortable and I was trying to take action with it. But I have 2 toddlers at home and there's a limit of how much I can do when I'm at home. And then I have the benefit of working someplace that basically pays me to do my own thing and be on my laptop. So I worked like a 9-hour day there recently after not working with them for a few weeks. And I was able to just work. I was able to just put a lot into my class and stuff that was like details I just hadn't been able to do. And suddenly all of this energy that had been up here was like, oh, I can breathe. Because I generated it. I'd done all this work, but it wasn't going anywhere. And I didn't realize it wasn't going anywhere because I was still taking action, but it wasn't the action that was needed. It was what I could fit in a half hour or an hour in a day. It needed like 5 hours of focus. And it wasn't that it's not that, okay, I have to do this so this will happen, but it was like I generated an energy and it needed this level of support to ground it into the world. Does that make sense? So again, it's another level of spell weaving, but it's you showing up and showing you're willing to show up for what you've created, what you've generated. The energy you've generated, you're now showing up for it. That makes sense? Okay, so that's, and again, any questions at any time, just write it in the chat or you can ask. Okay. All right. And then the third one kind of fits with what I've said. Action can be direct or indirect. So direct action is like, using the example of sitting down and going through my bookkeeping, if I had the intention to get caught up on my paperwork and pay my taxes or something, that's a direct action for it. But I had a different intention. I had an intention to basically prepare myself. Like I felt like I was preparing for something, but I didn't know what. And that's indirect. It's like for something else that I can't quite see. Like the action is not for the thing you are doing, it's to allow energy to go somewhere else. So I have the example of when I was pregnant with my first child, my husband and I, we discovered infection in our roses. We have rose bushes in our front yard. We discovered an infection and we spent like a month going through and pruning it and spraying it and digging up around it. And we did this deep dive of work on the roses to care for them. And I could feel that it was actually a project that we were sharing to prepare us for parenthood. Like we were learning, we were together caring for something in preparation for raising children. Now, there are a lot of direct actions for raising children, and there is a lot of books and a lot of hangups in our culture around it. So if it was about, okay, how do we prepare to have a child, and how there's a lot of anxiety that can show up, there's a lot of pressure that can show up, there's a lot of what ifs that can show up, and there's a lot of, there's a right way to do it that is out there. But pruning roses skips all of that. Pruning roses is cultivating the energy for giving care and raising children and taking care of without any of that pressure, without any of that noise about the right way to do it. And so we talked about that, and we were intending, I certainly was in this action, I was putting energy and intention toward my daughter. One way I tell people to do this is like making a vision board. Like you make your vision board of what you want for your life, and then whenever you're taking action, you're sending energy into that vision. So that's like you're taking the action over here, and it can be taking a walk, it can be having some tea, it can be exercising, it can be any number of things, but then you're sending there's like a backflow of energy. You go one way and there's energy that comes back toward you. You're sending that into your vision of what you want for your life. So that's the indirect action. It's going one way and creating room for something else to show up over here. And I actually feel that all action is indirect. I can be doing a lot toward one thing, but I don't know if that's the thing that I'm creating. I know the energy I'm putting into it, and I know what I'm showing up with for it, but maybe something entirely different is going to grow. And I'm like, I think I'm growing an apple tree, but really I'm growing, I don't know, Jack's beanstalk came to mind. Like a big stalk that goes to a different place that's unexpected. I think that's a good metaphor. You know, could be, I mean, I could say I'm trying to grow an apple tree and really I'm growing a pear tree and I didn't know it, but I liked the beanstalk image because that's more dramatic and exciting. But I always treat action like, okay, I'm doing this, but maybe it's not for this thing. So then I'm not hung up on if I'm getting the results I want. It's not about those results. It's about what am I bringing to the table? What am I cultivating in myself by doing it? And then that energy I'm cultivating inside myself will do something. So if you're working really, really hard to, like, I mean, I've done this. I job hunted for a year and I couldn't get a job. Like, if you're working really hard to a specific goal and it's not working, what are you generating and cultivating inside yourself when you're doing it is a really key question. And I would invite everyone to check in with that. And then if it's anxiety, if you're cultivating a lot of anxiety, take a break. It's not a good time to take action. If you got a lot of anxiety going on, the action is to sit and support yourself in the anxiety. It's not to keep going. It's not to push harder. It's not to try harder. Yeah. So, and what I like about these 3 principles is they take the pressure and the weight off of the action. They don't make it about the external, they make it about the internal. When it's about the internal, everything gets lighter. When it's about the external, everything gets heavier. You'll notice if you put energy on what you're doing, in martial arts, they say it's double weighted. It's like if you put your weight on your leg and then you try and walk with that leg, you can't lift it up, you can't move it. You have to shift your weight to the other leg to lift the one leg. Like there's this way of, if you put your energy and your concentration on the thing you are doing, you are laying it down and making it very heavy. If you put it internal, if you move inward and you make it about what is my inner state, then the action becomes very light. And it has it has a greater flow. It has a greater ease about it. And you're creating space, room for movement in the external, because your focus is internal. So the external suddenly it has room to move. So then your action becomes more effective because you're not going, okay, I did this thing. Now I gotta, get the job or get whatever this thing is, whatever this action I'm taking for. It's like that or something better. And one way that I keep that door open is I always say that or something better. And there's a certain level of trust that comes with time, I think. I've done this enough that if it doesn't go the way I'm hoping it will, I lean into something better. And invariably something better shows up because that's what I'm looking for. That's where I've put my awareness, my attention. I don't think that's ever not worked for me. And that's what I've had all these goals and intentions right now. Like I went, I let myself kind of fall into being a mother and raising small children during a pandemic. And then something inside me was like, no way, I want to rebuild my business. And it was like, how do you do that during a pandemic when my work is in person? And that's how I started doing these online talks and the online classes and these things. And I'm not putting anything on the actions I'm doing. It's because something inside me needed to express. I had something to share. And that became more important than my comfort zone. It was like, I'd rather share this than be comfortable and let my husband's job support me and things. It was like, wait a second, there's something more here. And so that's what's moving me. And it's curiosity, and it's a question, and it keeps being a question of what else is here, not a, if I don't do it, then that means I'm a failure or this, or it's not right. Like there's nothing wrong with being where I am to start. I just think something better could happen. And that's a key attitude about action. There's nothing wrong with where things are, but what's inside that wants to be expressed, because there will always be an expression. It's impossible not to take action. You will always be taking action. Energy inside you will always be coming out into the world. Getting a little conscious about it, what is the energy inside me that I am infusing into my environment, is a really good question that can explain a lot of what you're experiencing in your life. Because you are spell weaving all the time. We just tend to do it unconsciously without knowing it. And that's why mindfulness practices of what am I thinking, what am I feeling, they are so powerful, because they place awareness on the internal before the action. And just that little bit of awareness, you get more conscious, your action becomes more conscious, and it becomes more effective by that. Any questions about any of that? Okay. So this is all part of, these are like little slivers. These free talks I'm doing are little slivers of my 6-week class on how manifestation really works. And I have like 18 points on action. This is just 3. There's a lot about action. I've trained a lot on action. There is a lot about it. If you want more, I'm going to write in the, you can look at it. I'm writing in the link for my class that's coming up. And it starts January 16th. I realized the new year was the time for inviting people to start making life better. Like, 2020 was a hard year. Let's make 2021 a little better. So it's a 6-week class to help life get a little bit better. And things like this, it just takes it deeper. It's this, but deeper and more. And there's a lot about action there's a lot to say about it. So that's just one of the pieces. Yeah, and for those who want the recording, send me your email. I'll write it in the message here too. Send me your email. I'm putting my email in the message, and then I can email you the recording. So those who want to listen to this again can have it. Yeah, just email me, and then I will have your email, and I'll be able to send you the recording. And then I'm also, these are free. I'm welcome to people sharing it, etc. And then again, if you're interested in the class, the link is in there. It's byinsights.com/manifestationworks. And I think of it as how to shift life into easy mode or take the stress out of life. Like, it's a lot of principles that don't get people hung up on positive thinking and the way manifestation is traditionally taught. There's not a lot of vision work in it. There's not a lot of the way people traditionally do this stuff. It's, I trained body consciousness, martial arts, and mindfulness meditation. And I looked at The Secret and everything. I was like, oh, that's everything I learned, but slightly different. And a little bit backwards, because manifestation from its traditions is about your evolution and your self-growth and your improvement. The way manifestation is taught by those methods, it's how to get what you want. And there's a Chinese curse of may you have everything you ever wished for. Like, there's a danger in getting what you want. As someone who's done it before, I know how dangerous getting what you want is. Uh, as far as the needing a positive attitude, I did, my talk last week was about that a little bit more. It was about emotions. Next week, I'm going to be doing one, how to talk so your emotions can cure you. That'll be about emotions again. Basically, for now, I'll just say, take care of your emotions on your own time. Make sure, take care of yourself on your own time, and then make your action an expression of the energy you want to bring to the world. So if you're not feeling well, stay home and, or, well, even if you can't stay home, just give time to your heart, give time, give love to yourself, give self-care to yourself, listen to what you need. But then if it's like, you know, I need money, or I need whatever the thing is, those actions are not about, oh, I hope someone can take care of, or I'm suffering, I'm struggling. Those actions aren't about I'm suffering and struggling. Those actions are about, there's something so brilliant inside of me I want to share with the world. And then you have your suffering and your struggle separate from those actions. And then it's about acceptance. Yeah, that's a really quick way. And then again, just quickly, the 3 steps are action is spell weaving. It is the energy you bring to the table is what you infuse into your environment through action. Action is, I have to look at my notes again. It's a symbolic way of showing that you are willing to show up for what you want. You are putting yourself, body and mind and heart in. Action will bring you to the table in a way nothing else can. If you're sitting there envisioning, action is how you show you're here and you're willing and you're ready to receive. It's a show up. And then action can be direct or indirect. Indirect action is doing one thing over here that doesn't seem related to it, but is cultivating energy in moving it toward that without it being like, you know, it's like us pruning roses as a way of preparing to have children. I saw that work as making it so we have an easier time with our kids. And so far it's worked. We have 2 children and they're both very calm and very easy as toddlers go. You know, it's still a lot to have kids, but we do not struggle with a lot of the things I see parents around me struggling with. And I think it's because of the level of intention we put in beforehand. And I think the fact that I've been studying emotional well-being for the last 20 years has helped. I think I know something about how to help children manage emotions. So there's a gift there. But there's also, and I study child psychology and other things too, but I also have taken it like meditation and taking care of the house and the home are always I'm taking care of my children without it being about the childcare. That makes sense. Yeah. So spell weaving, showing up, and indirect or direct. And direct, it has a place. It's important. That can be part of showing up and showing you're willing to show up. I think direct action is a great way of showing that you're willing to show up for something. But my own experience, I mean, when I looked at my astrology chart, I assume you all believe in astrology, and if you not, just accept that I do. When I looked at my astrology chart, I was like, Neptune runs everything in it, and Neptune is all about indirect action. It's all about circles. There is no straight lines. I suffered and struggled so much in my life trying to do this to get that. It did not work for me at all. And then I learned this thing of like, oh, I go in circles. So my way that I did it all through childhood that totally worked for me was like, oh, I'm just going to do this thing because I know it'll work. And it made no sense. There was no logic to it, and it would work. And then I like hit my 20s and suddenly I had to be an adult and take care of myself. And I was like, oh man, this all just got real. I got really freaked out and spent about 10 years really, really struggling, trying to just get a job, trying to just this, trying to just that. And then it was like, oh, I do things in circles. I do things in direct. I don't do one thing to get another. I do these 5 things over there, and then this happens. And that made my life much easier. And yeah, it's not how it is for everyone. My sister is a direct line kind of person. She does one thing and gets that exact thing exactly. And it's always, I do this, so I get that. And if that's you, that's you. Everyone is wired differently. For me, it's like, it's a little bit more confusing because I have to trust a lot that it's working, because I never can go, oh, because I did this, this will happen. It's always like, well, I will just assume it will happen while I do all these different things. And it tends to. So I finally got my life on track. But I kind of run on blind faith all the time. Okay. Well, we're at about a half hour, which is what I wanted to give to this. As I said, this is one thin slice of the bigger class. I'm doing all these talks, and there's a lot of information in these talks because I can afford to do thin slices like this. I've got so much to share in the bigger class. And then I got the idea also of doing, I used to, before the pandemic, do like talks for like $20 in the community. And I got the idea of putting those same talks as classes up on my website. And I'm thinking of like doing like these $15 things of on my website. So if interested, I will also, well, interested or not, I'm going to be posting that as well. You can check it out if you are, but it's like $15 classes on life purpose activation and how to handle the inner critic and emotional well-being and stuff. And then there's also the classes like this $120 class on manifestation that I'm promoting here. And then I have the idea, I split into levels 1 and 2 because there was just so much. So level 1 is going to be $120. Level 2 might be a little more because it requires a bigger commitment and of activity, like the homework is a little more intensive and stuff. So that's a little more intensive. So I thought too, charging more might help people be more prepared to do more work, because level 2 requires more work. Level 1 is very fun, very light, very easy, very fun. I'm really looking forward to teaching it because the homework is simple. And you don't have to dive into every issue in your life to do it. Okay. All right. Thank you. So I will be here next Sunday, 2:00. How to talk so your emotions can hear you. It's going to be another way of working with the emotions and the unconscious, so you're not operating on top of them. Simple, easy, fun is the order of the day. And I hope you can join me. If not, you can email and I will send you the recording. And then again, if you want the recording to this, email me and I will send it to you. And the email's in the chat. Okay. Anything else before we go? All good? Okay. Thank you all for being here. It's a delight and a pleasure. I'm really enjoying doing it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, very glad to. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, glad to. Glad to.